Are you ready to eliminate your credit card processing fees? Visit www.pairpayments.com and use code JAKE for a $250 Visa gift card when you join today.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Under Pressure podcast. My name is John McDaniel. We are going to be talking about all things business and under pressure. So glad I could be here today. I had some technical difficulties on last week's recording, so weren't able to get one of those out. So hopefully you'll jump right back into all of what we're doing here. And we've got some great guests coming up here in the future. So I want to take a little bit different. So I told you before, if you saw or heard the last one, that I will be doing some solo occasionally, and it'll be very topical, covering something that really just we can discuss, something you can listen to, and while you're going about your day, just like any other podcast. But this is going to be specific around things in business or our health. Development, more of a personal side. Now there will be a twist. Like today, I really want to discuss ego. So that's going to mean ego in general and ego in business. And what does that look like? Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? We'll unpack some of this. And I'm no expert on ego, but I've done a lot of reading around it. And, many of you know I was in law enforcement for a number of years and I retired from that. And I think it doesn't matter what you're wrapped into when it comes to ego, it can be a really good thing, because there's a side of that that's like confidence, right? It can also be something that can hurt you. So we want to kind of unpack both sides of this and discuss where it could be damaging to have too much, especially in the business side of things, and really personal life as well. No one wants to be considered egotistical. I think to some degree we all can be, but there are positive sides to this and negative sides to this. That being said, let's kind of discuss the ego a little bit. When I hear, like many of you probably, when you hear the word ego, you're thinking about this. I mean, you probably even have an image in your mind. Some of you, it may be the image you see in the mirror. I don't know. But our ego, and I'm not going to pull up definitions here. Okay. We're not doing that. Our ego can help us with that confidence. I said it earlier, like our confidence can come from part of our ego, like how we view ourselves, how we feel ourselves and feel about ourselves, how we present ourselves, how are we showing up. So the ego itself can be largely, or a large portion of it is confidence. So let's talk about confidence. Being confident, walking around every day, doing this different, man, woman, it doesn't matter who you are. Being confident is, I would think, very important, especially on the business side. On the personal side, how do we gain confidence? Every time, you can see it in a lot of, like, for example, let's say athletes, or early on, you can think about in childhood, when you could go out and try out for a team or do something like that, and you made it. And then as you did great things, or as it was perceived as, you're getting pats on the back, and you caught the ball, you made the touchdown, you hit the ball, you whatever it was in the sports, um, you think about those athletes, the better they were, the more confident they became, the more they were praised, right? The more confident they would become, or you would become. You can think of yourself as well. Now, you can also think of it this way. Um, what happened when you didn't make the catch? What happened when you didn't hit the ball? Um, what happened when you didn't defend like you should have defended and someone got past you and scored? So you start thinking about that. And when it's repetitive and there's not praise, then it can damage our confidence, right? So, to some degree, that's one way to look at how our confidence obviously can be built starting early on. And depending on how many of those experiences we have, you know, starting out early, it could really damage us. Now, we're not now let's not all about sports. Okay. That was just one example. You can think about this in your grades, your academic achievements in school early on. Um, you know, outdoor, not sports, but outdoor events like going places and doing things and seeing different places, experiencing new things. So, all of these things can add up and really help our confidence and boost our ego, right? And when that begins to happen, we show up in a new way. And the more confidence we can have in what we're doing, then yeah, it's great, right? Like everyone's going to respond to you differently because you're carrying yourself differently. Um, you can probably think of someone that you know for a fact has no confidence. And I'm talking like none. And most people don't, they don't feel real good around them because, for one, it's a little awkward, right? You don't know what to say because generally there comes with that a persona, right? Um, so consider that and how that doesn't necessarily make you feel good. So there's that's a whole another level, and someone who's in that kind of state where their confidence is shattered, generally, probably not always, but they may not be as successful in some of the things they're doing because they don't have the confidence to carry them. Now, that's where skill comes in, right? Like you could be very skilled at certain things and still do pretty good at them, even if your confidence is lacking, because there are certain things that just work that way. Uh, I could be completely 100% secure in one area and confident in one area of my life. If I'm a computer programmer, I know how to do it very well, but I may not have the confidence to step outside and be in a big crowd, or go to someone's house and be able to socialize. Or it's just an example. I'm not saying computer programmers are that way. I'm just giving an example of confidence and this idea of partially of our ego, right? So now, if we start thinking about like business, um, it's natural to think, just like everything else, if you have the confidence, if you're confident about your business and you're confident about what you're trying to do, whether it's a product, it's a service, um, whatever that looks like, if you're very confident about it, then others are probably going to see that. Now, it doesn't mean that you're just going to kill it right off the bat. Like if we all just show up and, you know, walk around and scream out about how confident you are on your service or your product. To some degree, we'll get into that in a minute. Um, some people don't want to hear that and they don't care. They don't care if you're confident about your product. They don't want your product. They don't want your service. So, but it does help, right? If I show up and I'm not excited or confident in what I have to offer on the business sense, then probably not going to get a lot of people excited about it. If I'm showing up and people are, they see that I'm excited and they see that I'm confident in not only myself, but in what I've got to offer. Now they're going to be a little more interested. There's going to be a little bit of intrigue, like, well, this is really looking good on them. Like, what this is, this is kind of making me interested in this a little bit. So thinking about the actual ego side of it, let's talk about some of the things where it could be like damaging. So maybe around growth, right? So kind of like we were just talking about, if you have like a kind of a set course, in your growth strategy, you can have that all in place. And to some degree, it may not always work out, right? Um, so if you're coming in as an entrepreneur, you've got your business, and you may hit like certain areas that it's not working out, or you're stalling out, or something's going on. So there may be something in that's off, right? Something's not working. You're gonna try to figure it out. Your team's gonna figure it out. Um, but like for me, I know I'm in growth, and so there are a lot of times that if I've just been repeating this thing, like I got to tell you guys, for me, it's people don't answer their phones, right? So you guys know this. Uh, like I'm like trying to call people, trying to get them on the phone just to have a conversation. And you guys that have businesses, like you're out there, you're trying to hustle up work, you're trying to make phone calls and send emails and do all this stuff to generate growth, right? To generate business. So in this aspect, if I'm over here and all I'm doing is making calls all stinking day long, if that's all I do, and I don't focus on any other areas, you guys can imagine what's going to happen, because you can all be thinking right now, like, do you want my phone call? Do you want somebody to call you? No, nobody ever wants it. Trust me. There are a few exceptions. I actually don't mind being called, and it's probably because of what I do, but it's not too big of a deal. But to some degree, I still don't like it. So there's more of the strategic, but if it's just like I'm not seeing results and I'm doing the same thing repeatedly, then at some point I'm going to start questioning myself, right? Like, am I the result of this? Am I doing this? And then I'll start to question how things have been put together. And should I reassess this? What am I going to have to do to change this? So if I'm constantly having to try to adjust this, and maybe something's off, or I'm thinking that, then also it's probably affecting my ego, right? Or my ego's affecting it. Um, because sometimes things just don't work. And if I allow my ego to come into play, because I'm just like, oh no, I've got to constantly switch this up. Sometimes it's a long term thing, right? Who knows? But your ego can come into play into that. And we have to be careful so that we don't, especially in certain things like that, when it comes to growth, like we're not wanting to damage our own ego or our employees' egos around this and damage our confidence and being able to push the business forward. So you have to be careful when it comes to stuff like that. So we can learn the lessons that we need to learn as we're pushing through that and navigating how to grow a company. So let's think of it in like maybe a coach or a mentor or something like that now. So Bergflow is a business coaching and consulting company. So we do both. And if we have clients who we can sit there and talk to them, meet with them weekly, one-on-one, meet with their leadership teams, do all of these things. If we're doing that, and while we're doing that, the whole goal behind that is to develop, right? That's why we have mentors. That's why we get coaches, and it doesn't matter. It's the same thing in sports, um, personal development, all these things. We do that because one, there's accountability. Two, usually people can see the things in the areas that we're having problems with easier than we can because we're too involved. We're so involved in it that we can't get past ourselves, right? Like we are in the way. So we need the help. We need someone to drive us. We need someone to question the things that we're doing. Um, because oftentimes in your company, like someone who does that, you just get ticked off, right? Like, this is my business. I know how to do. No. So that's why people hire them, coaches and mentors, someone to look up to. But here's the other side of this. It can be a great thing, right? Build your confidence, propel your business, propel your personal development, whether it's emotional or spiritual, business, whatever it is, when you have these people in your life that can speak in your life. But the key is listening, right? So uh, if you're not listening and you're not actually taking your coach's advice or um, listening to your mentors, if they're just telling you, you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's cool. And then you continue to do the same things that you were doing, there's a problem there, right? That's not how this works. You're wasting your time and probably the time of others. The whole point behind it is to get, and this is again this ego. Like, if you, as a business owner or a business leader in your company, if you actually think you know it all the time, you can pretty much guarantee there's a problem. If you're not willing to hear what someone else has to say around the company or around your growth or how to deal with employees or whatever it is, if you're not willing to absorb that and actually consider it because you actually believe you have all of the answers, there's an issue. And if you're not willing to put those people in your life uh, to tell you those things, you have an ego problem, right? Because let's just get real. We're going to get real. You have an ego problem if you're just like, no, they can't tell me anything, so I don't need them. We can learn something from everyone, anyone, something. Now, there's probably some people's advice I don't want to pay for, um, or someone I just don't even want speaking into my life because of their values. Now, I could probably still learn something from them. Maybe even it's not what to like, don't do this. So we can learn from everyone. And we have a saying, you don't know what you don't know. And I say we have a saying. It's a saying, and we say it. And really it's because it's just the truth, right? So if we let our egos and we can't take this constructive criticism that comes in or constructive ideas or just another viewpoint and then actually analyze it and take it in and really consider it, then you can bet your ego's in the way. You can bet that if an employee even comes to you with a great idea or with a pretty good idea, and just because they're beneath you or something like that, you're not willing to even actually consider it, even though you pretend. Some people are good at pretending. Don't pretend. Just listen or don't. And but don't waste their time by pretending to, right? Take it in. And if it's not good, then it's not good. That's fine. but at least consider it. So don't let your ego, get in the way of actually. You never know when you're going to miss some fantastic idea from a coach, from a mentor or employee or a partner if you're not listening. So kick that ego out of the way. You can still be confident. It takes confidence to run a business, right? And it takes confidence to lead people, but don't let it get in the way. So another thing, so let's think about, like, we talked a little bit about growth and I'm talking about like mentors and coaches. What about your current clientele base, right? So whatever your business is, if it's coaching company, if it's you've got a retail store, whatever it is, obviously your customer base, you want repeat. You want them to stick around, right? You want them to be there. You want them to come back to your store. You want them to retain your services. And you want them to tell others about you, right? You want them to give you referrals. You want them to spread the good news about your wonderful and amazing company. That's great. But what happens, and having those strong relationships, good. What happens when your ego around certain things gets away? And here's an example. Let's say I talk to a lot of power washers and window cleaners and stuff. So let's just talk about that. So let's say you're a power washing company and maybe one of your crew, they come out and maybe even somebody you really like and you trust, but they go to a customer's home and they don't do a good job. Maybe it's subpar. It's not up to their expectations, not what they expected, right? And maybe it's someone that you've had for a while. They've been happy up to this point, but something's gone on. And maybe an employee had a bad day. Maybe the people at this location, maybe it's their home, their business, maybe they're also having a bad day. So things get heated, something goes down, they're calling you up and they're freaking out. And you respond by, I know I have a good business. You don't want my service. You don't have to have my service. And you hang up the phone. What do you think that did? What do you think is in the way there? It's ego, right? It's ego. Well, if they don't want my business, then I don't care. That's ego. Of course you care. That's how you make money. That's how your business operates. Now, absolutely, there's probably customers on the planet that, once again, you may not want to do business with for certain reasons. But sometimes I think we could all allow those relationships. We can let our ego get in the way of retaining them and keeping them simply over something as like trivial, because the very next day, like if you just apologize and say, hey, we'll make this right and we'll do these things and just be very humble about it, you never know. Like, heck, right after you say that, they may apologize. They may call back the next day and say, hey man, I'm so sorry. My freaking dog died and I was in such a bad mood, and then this happened and this happened, and it really just, you know what I mean? Like, so we can't let our ego in moments like that overwhelm us and get in the way of retaining good customers, even if you have to let someone else handle that conversation in the moment. Or maybe you can even tell them, hey, I want to discuss this with you. Give me just a minute and let me talk to my employee and maybe see what's happening, and I'll call you right back. But we can't let our ego fail us in those relationships, right? So we want them to talk good about us. And that's another good side of that, where if we can humble ourselves in that sense, without, you know, just folding, giving everything away and being stepped on and walked on. But if we can humble ourselves a little bit, they're going to remember that, and they're probably going to pass that along to people, right? Like, hey, I had a bad day one day. They didn't even jump down my throat. I wasn't happy, but man, I felt terrible about the way I treated them, and but they did me good, right? That's a good conversation. They can also, like, they're going to be able to tell. So as leaders, they're going to be able to tell and feed off of kind of what you're doing and saying. And some people I've been around, especially in law enforcement, you know, all they want to do is they wanted to blame me. You know, they break into a car, get caught red-handed, uh, and then they want to tell me I'm ruining their life. Like I'm the one that broke into the car. You know, it's like, no, I didn't make this decision, but and a lot of times I wanted to get angry about it, but approaching it differently, like trying to just explain to them, like, this is just why I'm here, and obviously, you know, you did this, but really just kind of going step by step and not feeding into it would make the difference a lot of times. So let's also talk about, so now we've covered growth in your business a little bit, how ego can play against that. Um, we've talked about like a mentor or coaching, um, and then like customer retention. Um, so let's talk about how we're showing up day to day. There, it's funny. There are times where, you know, we all want to, and we all say, like, there's this whole positive, let's all be positive movement, right? Like all the time, everybody's positive, we're smiling, and that's a good thing. Being positive is great. Um, and though you got to hear me out. Like, I want to be positive every day. I want to show up in a positive manner every day. I don't always do that. Sometimes I don't, and that's probably not helpful either if I'm not showing up. But I think it can be excessive, right? You can show up in such a way constantly where people are just sick of it. So, like, it's your ego saying, if I come up and I show up and I'm smiling, and then I'm telling everyone else they have to smile, and I'm telling them how they have to feel and how they have to show up, how they have to present themselves, to some degree, it's going to begin to be a little toxic. Right? So you don't want to be just constantly push this over positive, over enthusiastic uh, messaging, where it just becomes about you and what you expect or what you think is going to help things. Being positive is just, it's just this uh, outlook, right? It can't force it. So I feel like we can definitely make it toxic if we're coming to work as a business owner or a leader or anyone for that matter, and we're just shoving it down everybody's throat. You're going to get pushed away, and then you're going to not understand why, and it's going to make you mad, and you're going to try to shove it down their throat some more. Or they don't accept how positive you are, then they don't need to be a part of your company. Um, like, is that a positive statement? Like, You know what? There's degrees of how we want to show up, and it can be very toxic if you're really just shoving that down people's throat. So try to be aware of how you're doing that, and let people have their moments and days. And now if it's, Eeyore every day and there's nothing positive going on and nothing happening, it's probably also going to show maybe in a little productivity and stuff too. But um, hey, personalities are different, and what and that's another aspect of that is we can't let our ego tell us whether or not someone else is being positive, because the way they're showing up may be positive. It just doesn't look like you want it to look. And uh, facts are, uh, it's in your world, and you might be like, "Well, it's my business." Well, there goes your ego talking. If they're a good employee and they're showing up and they're doing their jobs and they're maybe even exceeding, but just because they may not tap dance around the room and high five constantly and chest bump and whatever all the other things you can think of when it comes to like over excessive positive whatever, it doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be there. They're not contributing to your company or contributing as a leader. So remember that. Don't have toxic positivity. Make it healthy and understand it looks different for everyone, right? So we'll talk about one more thing when it comes to this. Talking about how, so let's discuss goals. It's Goals are great to have, and you've got to have them in business. You guys should know that. So want to have your business goals set. Everyone should know them in your company. We talked about that a lot in BergFlow. Um, and what are goals? Right? There's something you're driving towards, very specific, should be very specific. Um, but to some degree, they have to be attainable, right? Now, if you don't make the goals, is life over? No. In business and personal life. So it doesn't mean you can't challenge yourself when you're making those goals, but you definitely want them to be attainable, right? Like everyone can agree with that. I'm not going to start a new business today and get my paperwork set and I've got my LLC and I go down and tomorrow I put the wrap on my truck and then by the end of the week, you know, I'm ready to go. I've got some equipment. I'm not going to set a goal to reach $50 million in 6 months. It's, sorry, it's probably not attainable just based on what's happening. And I'll probably, if I had unlimited resources at that point, maybe, but still probably not, right? Things have to build. So, my point being, set those attainable, challenging, but attainable goals. And then don't let those, and like you and yourself and those in your company, don't let the goals overwhelm you guys. Okay. Because it can really like consume you, right? The focus. And I know like I if a goal's put in front of me, I really want to achieve it. When I start losing ground or something happens, uh, I really take a hit. And part of that is going to be my ego, but it may also be everyone else's, right? So, especially if you're pushing, like, you know, driving this thing so much into the ground. I heard this story of, um, it's not a story, I guess it was a true thing over maybe in China, um, where these employees are they're working so much trying to achieve these goals and there's so much put on their plate, they're actually just like overworked and they're killing themselves, literally. Like they are committing suicide because even though they have great lives and they're making lots of money, they don't feel like they can continue and keep up and achieve those goals, even though there's so much pressure. So that's when it becomes dangerous, right? And that ego pushing someone to that level can be very dangerous. Um, and it can cause your business to crumble. Because if you're totally consumed by these marks, there's a couple things. If you're overconsumed, then you're going to push people potentially to a limit because of your ego that they can't go. And then what's going to happen when they don't get there? If you're so consumed by it, then now you're going to be disappointed in them. Um, they're not going to feel like they're a part of the team. They're not going to feel like they want to be a part of the team. So now things begin to crumble, right? So getting fixated on these problems can be a problem. So you start focusing back and try to redirect them more positively and help them to understand that. So you're not crushing their ego and you're not pushing yours on them. You find this balance, right? And there's it's good to drive and it's good to push, and you want people to be challenged, but there does come a point where it can be pretty dangerous, and our ego around those goals can have a toxic effect, as well as not only on our employees or the people we're leading, but it can have an effect on us. Um, so, all this to be said, when it comes to ego, like you're a business owner, just remember, man, you gotta, or lady, all of y'all, you gotta get out of your own way sometimes. Um, your business should be able to operate without you. You should be able to disappear for a time period, not only removing your ego, but removing yourself from it, and it should be able to operate, should be able to run. And I think you all probably as business owners want to get to that point. And if you're a leader in your company listening to this, you want to lead that company and grow it so that you have more opportunity, right? But you can't let ego get in the way. So be careful. Make sure we're learning from those around us. Um, get somebody on your side. If you're hitting ceilings, you're hitting walls where you're not continuing to learn and grow, it's your fault. Okay? It's no one else's. There's plenty of help out there all over the place. Um, call us. We'll help you. If you're hitting those ceilings, you got to swallow your pride a little bit. You got to let the ego die some, not your confidence. You know, be confident in yourself and your company, but don't allow your ego to step up where you're not learning stuff and you're not listening and you're not being healthy in how you're delivering yourself and how your employees see you and how you see yourself, how your family sees you, because it can be very damaging and it's going to be a very lonely road. Like your ego gets too much. I'm sorry, man. You're going to be added alone. You can say, well, that's fine. I'm going to succeed. Okay, go succeed. And once again, we've seen a lot of successful people in the world that are not happy um, because success doesn't equate to happiness all the time. depending on your definition of success. So bottom line, guys, gals, everyone, don't let your ego be that blocker. Don't let your ego get in the way. Thank you all for listening. I hope this was at least like something you could kind of go, maybe pick up one little nugget out of this. I don't know. Maybe you knew it all already, right? Your ego got in the way. My suggestion, man, just analyze it a little bit, take something from it, think about it just for a little bit, process it some, maybe even start asking a few people just out of curiosity. Go around, ask some people in your business, company, ask your family what they think about, like, do they think you're egotistical? And remember that there's still this good side of things. Okay. Confidence and having some ego in business and being confident and stuff like that is also positive. So take it, do with what you want, comment, like, subscribe, share it. All the stuff that you do with podcasts and all that stuff. So grateful for you listening, and make sure you comment if you want. Thank you. My name is John McDaniel, and this is the Under Pressure podcast, where we discuss all things business and under pressure. Have a great day.